right now. Today is the day that you choose to change the rest of your life. It is time to turn your setback into the greatest comeback story ever told, and nobody is more capable than you. This is the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast, the future #1 weight loss podcast in the world. I am your host, Donato Russo. I hope you enjoy the show today. If this is your first time here and you enjoy the show, please subscribe and spread the word of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast wherever you are and to whomever will listen. If you'd like to connect on social media or wherever else, check out my Linktree page, Linktree/the Ranting Weight Watcher. Let's connect today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 200 of the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast. If this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to the show. If you enjoy it, please consider subscribing. If the app that you're using to listen to the show allows you to write a review or rate the show, please consider writing a review and leaving a 4-star or 5-star rating. Doing this will promote the podcast growth by updating an algorithm, which in turn will make it easier for anyone else looking for a weight loss or related podcast that is using the same app as you. One of the best things you could do to support this podcast is to literally tell anyone you know that is in the same position we are all in, trying to live a healthy life. Tell them about the show. Show them how to find it. I want to give a special thanks to all of the financial supporters of the podcast. Thank you so much for considering the Ranting Weight Watcher podcast a worthy investment of your hard-earned money. If you are interested in becoming a financial supporter of this podcast, there is a Linktree link in the description of every podcast episode. When you click it, you will be taken to a website where you will see a button that says Become a Financial Supporter. Click that button and you will be given the options available so that you can choose from there. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this! Journey updates. I am down this week 2 pounds. Total loss since January 2019 is 178.6 pounds. Total pounds remaining to get to the 200-pound milestone, 21.4 pounds. So I have some analogies today that might throw you off a little bit, but I promise you it'll all make sense in the end, so just stick with me here. So if I worked in the IT department of a company, and my boss came to me and said, the accounting department is moving to this building on the 6th floor. We need a network run up to the 6th floor. And so my job was to come in on an off day or stay late at night so I wouldn't disturb any work. And I would bring the network to the area that the accounting department is moving to. So this takes some work, running a single wire all the way to the 6th floor through some ductwork and everything that is all designed to run those wires. We get it up to the 6th floor. So a single wire enters the 6th floor. Now, they tell me in my work order that there are 20 workstations that need to be set up here. I only brought one wire up to the 6th floor. So how do I service 20 workstations with a wired connection to the network? I have to introduce something called a network switch. So a network switch takes this single wire and divides it so that the network can be shared over however many connections. There are different switches with different number of ports, and you would choose the port accordingly. Since I have 20 workstations to set up, the switch I have will need to have at least 20 ports. So I pick a location for my switch to go. I introduce the switch, and then through the walls, I run all of the wires to the areas where each workstation is going to be. Someone else comes in, connects all the workstations. We do all the testing that needs to be done and make sure that all 20 workstations have network connection. Bingo, we are done. Even though everything was set up as according to the work order, that network switch becomes a point of failure. Now, what does that mean to become a point of failure? Let's say that we come in one day, this is months later, whatever it is, and over the weekend, there was a storm, a power surge, and that network switch gets damaged because of the power surge. If I'm working the call center in the IT department, Monday morning, 20 workstations are calling me because they don't have connection. So now this could be, oh my God, is this system-wide? Or is it just localized to the accounting department? Now, once I determine everyone that's calling me seems to be calling from the accounting department, now I could say, where is the point of failure where the accounting department is? So the accounting department is on the 6th floor of this building. So we go to the 6th floor. Where is the point of failure? Where is the network switch? I go to the network switch, do the testing that needs to be done, and I realize that the network switch is what needs to be replaced because that is the point of which the failure is beginning. Good or bad, the decisions we make on a daily basis create points of failure in our future. We may not be able to determine what they are. We may be able to determine some of them, but we'll never know for sure when they come, how they come, where they come. But every time we make a decision, whether we even perceive that decision as a good decision or a bad decision, each side will create points of failure. So I had this dream that I would love to own like 100 acres of land. Where? I don't really know. I just know that I'd like it to be in an area where you could see winters and you could see summers. But I have 100 acres of land. And in the center of that land is a small off-grid log cabin. And the purpose of this log cabin and the purpose of this place is to be destitute, to be in solitude, because I believe that if I'm ever in this situation where I could go and be in solitude, I will find God in this place. I'm not saying that I can't find God now. I'm saying that I would like to see him or meet him in the place where he created as he intended it. Go have a cabin in the middle of nowhere, have connection to no civilization, be completely off the grid, and go and find God. Now let's say I snap my fingers and I have the money to do that. By purchasing this land with this intention, what could some of my points of failure become? I have an off-the-grid log cabin. What would I need in order to stay there? I would need a water source because I need to be able to get water to drink. So I'd have to find some kind of fresh water source, whether it was digging a well or finding a stream that was fresh water. Whatever the case may be, I would need to find a water source. That's the first point of failure. Because if I can't find a water source, how long could I really live there? Another point of failure would be I would have to have the ability to hunt. Because if I couldn't hunt for food, I wouldn't last very long in this destitute area. If I did successfully hunt food, I would need to know what to do to the food to prepare it for cooking. We need to know how to dress the animal, how to store the meat so it doesn't go bad. I would also need to know how to create fire. Creating fire would be another point of failure. I would also need to know what food can be foraged. I couldn't just go and eat any berries I found. I would have to know something about the berries in the area of land that I would own. What is poisonous, what's not poisonous. I would have to have some knowledge. And then one of the biggest things I would need to know, I would need to know the predators in the area. What lives in this area of nature where I would be in danger to? So just off the top of my head, that's 6 things, 6 points of failure. Finding water, having the ability to hunt, knowing what to do to the meat once I hunt it, the ability to create fire, the ability to forage food and know what can be foraged, what shouldn't be foraged, and knowing what predators lie in the area that might cause me danger. That's just 6 off the top of my head that if I was ever going to I had a bunch of money and I wanted to buy a bunch of land so that I can have trips off grid and disappear from the world for a little while. That's what I would need to know at minimum. And I'm not talking about making fire with matches here. I'm talking about creating fire, rubbing 2 sticks together and creating a fire. There's this movie came out. It has to be more than 10 years old at this point. It's called Into the Wild. It's based on a true story, and it actually was a book before it was a movie. And it's about a young man who graduates college. His name is Chris. I mean, he could live a good life. His family is very well situated. He can have a life that would set himself up pretty lovely, but instead he decides to turn away from all of that. And he wanted to get in connection with nature and to survive off instincts. He was determined to challenge himself in a way that most people would think is crazy. So he makes his way across America with the goal of getting to Alaska. And a lot of the movie, you'll see he's hitchhiking. He's doing all he can to get to Alaska because he wants to brave the wild of Alaska. That's his dream. He finally gets there and he lives in Alaska for, I think it's 100 so days, something like that. He's living in the wild and he's documenting in journals the entire time he's there. I mean, this is a very well-known story. You can look this up. He died. He was eating a food that he didn't know was causing him to become paralyzed. He got to the point where he had eaten so much of it, there was no coming back. And essentially, he died of starvation because the food he was eating was creating paralysis, so he couldn't move to continue to do the right thing. But it's a very interesting story. Now, you may think that this is stupid. Why would a young kid do this to himself and end his life so short? But I'm telling you that you and I make choices on a daily basis that are even more stupid. We make choices every day, knowingly and unknowingly. We willingly try to live lives with addictive food. We willingly choose food because we know it will bring pleasure rather than it will bring nourishment. We would much rather make a choice to make our tongue happy and get a dopamine hit in the brain than choose food that would nourish our body so that our body can give us what we ask of it. We make these choices every single day. The choices we make create failure points. And we don't even think about what failure points we are adding. We are just willingly choosing them because they bring us instant pleasure without any regard to the failure points created by the choices we make. We claim to want to be healthy, and yet we try to live with food that has enough ingredients to poison us. And we have gone even further and told ourselves that we cannot live without that food. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. I now present to you the Ranting Weight Watcher Accountability Creed. If you choose this day to say this creed, you are accountable to me, the author. You are also accountable to all of those before you who have taken the creed, and all of those after you who will take the creed. But most of all, you are accountable to yourself. Now recite with me the Accountability Creed. Nothing can stand in my way because I choose to be unstoppable. My challenges crumble in my presence because I choose strength when I am weak. My insecurities have no power over my life because I choose confidence in the face of fear. I own every last one of my mistakes because I choose growth over mediocrity. The mirror and the scale are powerless because I move forward in spite of the result. Circumstances are not obstacles because I see solutions instead of problems. The demons of my past can no longer torment me because I choose to renew my mind daily. All things are possible as long as I believe, because if God is for me, who can be against me? This is the creed I declare each day. It is about what I do, not what I say. I will learn the work that needs to be done. I will never stop, even when I've won. I will work consistently, no matter the cost. I refuse to believe that all hope is lost. I will work when I want to. I will work when I don't. I will work when they are cheering. I will work when they won't. I will work when it's easy. I will work when it's hard. The atonements that I've made are made with no regard. I will work when it's cold. I will work when it's hot, because choices have consequences, justified or not. When I think I know it all, I will start back at one, because regardless of what I think, the work is never done. And from this moment forward, when times are tough, I choose to believe that I am enough. And we are back. Thanks for sticking with me. You may go today and you may try to find how can you watch Into the Wild and see the story of Chris. And you may look at it and say, what a shame. He wasted his life. But I myself admire what he did, because he saw what he wanted and he did what he took to achieve it. Did he maybe not perceive the failure points he was creating? as he made those choices? No, he was more blinded by the goal to get there than what could be once he got there. Maybe he could have sit in a room in a library somewhere and figured out that land, that area, what is natural food that he can eat, he can't eat, he should avoid. What are the predators of that area? If he hunts food, what should he do to preserve the meat? All of these things. Maybe he needed a little more time so he can last more than the 100 or so days that he lasted. Having that little extra knowledge to know not to eat the seeds that came from that food. Because there's some reports that say it was wild potatoes that he was eating. And the seeds from those wild potatoes caused him to go paralyzed over a long period of time because of a toxin in those seeds. And the more and more paralyzed he became, he realized too late it was being caused by him eating those potatoes and the seeds that came with them. But in spite of his failure, in spite of how his end came, I admire his story. I admire his drive. The pursuit of what he wanted above all else, I admire that. Because if you gave me a choice right now, I would rather die trying to live than live trying to die. The overwhelming majority of us live trying to die. Knowingly or unknowingly, we make choices that create failure points, and then we go, why? Why is this happening to me? Woe is me. What kind of luck do I have to be in this situation right now? We never look within to see how have the choices I've made in my life brought me to this moment. We've been completely enabled so that we never notice that the choices we've made have put us in this situation, in this moment. We've been enabled to believe that certain things, certain ailments and sicknesses just come with age. That there's nothing you could have done to stop this, just comes with age. Yet the more and more study you do on ingredients, if you actually do some research, you can see that these ailments have been in the process of being created nearly your entire life. And your body just doesn't have the ability to fight anymore. The monster you created over years and years and years of willingly choosing addictive food that created failure points that you could never, ever fathom to see. I've talked so many times about the ingredients of our food. I post so many reels on Instagram. I always want to make people aware of what is being done. Because you know what? The overwhelming majority of the food, it's not the food. It's what they do to the food. I tell you all the time, if it's part of an animal, eat it. If it grows from the ground, eat it. If it came from an animal, eat it. If you stick to that, you can eliminate the overwhelming majority of the issues created by addictive food. You won't encounter half of the 90% of the man-made ingredients that come in food. I also encourage you to make it yourself. That if you really want bread, don't you dare buy it. Buy the ingredients that make bread and make bread yourself. Because when you do that, you know exactly what ingredients went into that bread. Cookies, the same thing. You really want a cookie? Buy the ingredients and make it yourself. Forget all of this instant stuff. I'd rather die trying to live life than live trying to die. So what am I getting at here? Why am I telling you all this? If I'm telling you that decisions that you make on a daily basis create points of failure, what would the goal then become? What's the counter to what I'm saying? The counter is to make choices that attempt to eliminate points of failure. Do you guys all remember your first day on the program? Whatever program you've chosen. There are people here listening to me that are on keto. There are people doing intermittent fasting. There are people on Weight Watchers. All systems here. Remember your first day. Now, somebody on that first day, if they came up to you and they said, tracking food would eliminate points of failure in your future, would you track your food? If someone came up to you on your first day and said, if you weigh and measure your food, you will eliminate points of failure in the future, would you weigh and measure your food? If someone told you that reading as much as you can about nutrition in general would eliminate points of failure in your future, how many books would you read? If they told you that increasing your activity over time would make life easier on all of your joints and you would live a less painful life if you became more active, and it would remove the points of failure in your future if you did that, would you get out and do those things? Would you be more active? That's what it means to not be chasing a scale result. Instead, you're chasing the work involved. You're eliminating points of failure by doing what you were told will help you eliminate points of failure. And you know what happens as a byproduct? The scale goes down anyway. But instead of being focused on the results, you're being focused on the behaviors that create the results. Now, I know all of you remember your first day. And I know I would bet in Vegas right now that every single one of you on whatever plan you chose was pointed toward tracking your food, weighing and measuring your food, and becoming more active. There's not a single person in a single program that was not told that. They didn't say it to you the way I'm saying it to you. They didn't talk about eliminating points of failure in the future. They just said it like it was a suggestion. People tend to be more successful that do these things. You don't have to do it, but people tend to be more successful. Meanwhile, you can pay up to $50 a month and you're actively choosing not to do those things because you've decided they're not necessary. You've willingly chosen to create failure points in your journey by choosing not to track, by choosing not to weigh and measure, by choosing not to be active. Willingly chosen. So what's the biggest point of failure? What's the biggest point of failure? The biggest point of failure is you. If you can eliminate yourself from what you're being taught, the sky's the limit. Your own opinion, if you could do any of this on your own, you would not need these programs. You would not have the problem you have. You would just naturally make choices like you have. So many friends you have that they just make the right choices. They don't seem to gain and lose. They seem to know how to live life. They make a bad choice here or there. Nobody's clean 100% of the time. But it has no hold on them. They can go on. They're not consumed. Their happiness is not attached to their ability to please their tongue. Because they chose to live life. They would rather die trying to live than live trying to die. So tell me, how many times have you chosen to add points of failure to your life? How many choices do you make on a daily basis that are just compiling points of failure in your future? It's time to wake up. At the end of all this, when you're at the pearly gates, as they say, if you're watching a reel of everything you should have accomplished in your life, what if you discover that the majority of the things you should have accomplished didn't get accomplished because you were too busy creating points of failure in your life? That's why I'd rather die trying to live than live trying to die. So here's some hard truth that nobody wants to hear. Every single one of us is currently a product of every decision we have made up to this point. Good, bad, or indifferent, every single one of us is a product of the decisions we've made. Maybe right now you don't like to hear that. Maybe right now you're living in the failure points you have created with the choices you've made God knows how many years ago. In spite of all that, I've got good news for you. The good news is this: the difference between creating failure points and eliminating failure points is the current decision. And I know you've been able to believe that you can eat what you want and lose weight. And I know I'm probably one of very few voices out there that's telling you that's simply not possible. And you probably don't like that I'm saying it. But the real question is, how many times will you wash, rinse, and repeat the attempts that you've already made over and over again, blaming systems, blaming all kinds of things, blaming everything but yourself? And it all being anchored by the delusions that you've been given from other people that say you can eat what you want and lose weight. I'm telling you that the way to true health is possible. You can choose to try and create a scale result, or you can try to live a truly healthy life. That choice is up to you. One is going to create failure points, and the other is going to start finally eliminating them. So, the choice is yours. Wash, rinse, and repeat the same old nonsense you've been doing for years, or start making the true sacrifices that have always needed to be made since the beginning of all of this. The real sacrifices of you saying no to what is currently pleasurable in your life so that you can have the possibility of true health. Now, true health might seem like this fantasy, but it's real. It can happen, and it means not having your life dictated by somebody in a white coat who says, "Oh, it cannot be cured, it can only be managed." It means living life on your terms. But it starts with sacrifices right now. You have to live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. And it all starts with you. The choice is yours. I can't say this any other way. I can't make it any plainer to you. Choose to live or choose to die. Either way, it's your choice. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all.